Good morning and welcome to our live talk program. This is Lloyd Grubb here, your host on Revive Reform Radio, doing our live talk program covering finance on this year, Tuesday, Rise and Shine and Give God the Glory. And today I'm looking at a topic for money and power. Men will sell their souls, you for less. So welcome again. Thanks for being with me here as we do our live talk program. Let us pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, I thank you for your word in this day. I pray the Lord that you may bless us as we study your word, and may you bless my mind and those listening for Christ's sake. Amen. So I'm doing this talk here, which is for money and power, men will sell their souls, you for less. So some of the things that we have to be aware of wherever we live is that there's this concept here that people will sell themselves out for nothing. And if they'll sell themselves out for nothing, then one has to be aware of this and go through life and go at life understanding that this is just part of the narrative of life and that people do these things. And ultimately, if they do it to themselves, as I say, sell themselves for nothing and sell themselves short, that ultimately they'll do it to you. So we want to be able to consider that and consider that well. So my theme for this week is be aware of the race. So this is part of the race. This is why the race is run this way. And understand the race. So you have to understand humanity and human beings wherever you live in this world and how they behave and protect yourself. But we are in a different and larger race. So understanding the real race and strive to be successful at this race, or the race that I'm describing, the race of salvation. And obviously what conversion does for us, it gives us an edge for both race. So as you understand the Bible put forward some principles and point you in a certain direction and tell you that this is part of what's going on in this life. And as you learn what's going on in this life, then the Bible gives you an edge, because what that edge does for you, it just simply makes it that you understand that if a human being, as I say, will sell themselves out for nothing, they'll sell themselves out for a morsel of bread, then you have to be careful when you're dealing with people, because that means they'll sell you out for nothing. And so that's how I go at life and how I look at life. So our first text has been yesterday is Ephesians chapter 6, verse 11. And it says, "Put on the whole armor of God, that you may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. Wherefore take unto you the whole armor of God, that you may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all, stand." So there are things that we must do when we come on. There's understanding we must have. And the Bible points us to this. And the Bible is telling us that there is spiritual wickedness in high places. Because for power and for money, people do anything for those things. And when a person is willing to do that, even to sell their own soul, to be able to get a place in this life that is of notoriety, or to get extreme amount of money, and even just basic amount of money, then the problem with that is that they'll sell you too for that. And so one has to be aware of that. So the Bible points us. So the Bible gives us an edge, because it's telling you the game. It's telling you how the game is run and why the game is run. And as you study the Bible, you start to see and trace it in society. You start to see it in the business arena. You see it in the political arena. You see it in the low level amongst people, how they'll sell themselves short. And so when you're aware of this, what it does, it gives you an edge, because it makes you go through life and you understand that you have to be very careful with people, especially when it shows certain characteristics that they will sell you out for nothing. Because obviously they'll show that they'll sell themselves out for nothing. When a person show you that they have no integrity, you can't contradict them. You know, the Bible says you shouldn't judge. But when a person displays certain behavior, you can't contradict them as you're being just very foolish. And I've known people take a lot of hurt in this life because they're going around with this mindset that, well, they can't think bad about a person. You don't think bad about a person. If the person do certain behavior and make certain statements, you watch them. You be very careful. You stay away from them, because they're telling you that I'm no good and I'll sell myself out for nothing. So what do you think I'll sell you out for? In 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 8, it says, "Be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary, the devil, as a roaring lion, walketh about seeking whom he may devour. So if the devil is going around trying to devour people, well, you don't interact with the devil, don't you? Do you? No, we don't interact with the devil in the sense of a direct interaction. We interact with our fellow human beings. And what we find is that there's people that are obviously declare themselves to be on Satan's side. These are the free, the secret society people. These are the devil worshippers. But there's people you come across that they basically like devils, and they have committed themselves that they'll sell anybody out for them to become famous, for them to become in power, for them to be able to have a lot of money. And so when a person has displayed this and state this outwardly, then you have to be careful, because if, as I say, if they're willing to sell themselves for nothing, I remember when I was younger, I had a discussion. Someone got myself into a discussion with somebody, and we were talking about integrity and honor and more, and having moral fiber. And the person was saying if somebody offered him a certain amount of money, or somebody has posed the riddle, I guess. If somebody offer you a certain amount of money, would you do such and such? And the person say, no, I'll do it for less. And from that time, I look sideways at that person, because I'm thinking, he was very serious. He wasn't even joking. And he said, I'm not joking. And I was like, wow. So if a person states that to you, listen, I have no integrity. And I've dealt with people throughout the life up until now that they have no moral fiber, they have no integrity, and they sell themselves out for nothing. They can be bought or sold. Then I'm thinking, if they can be bought or sold for that, what do they do for me? This is why it's easy in this life, as you observe that, people be like hitman, they pay to kill people. And you say, why would somebody take money to pay to kill somebody? Because, they come cheap. So we are not supposed to be cheap. We come at an expensive price. And so we want to be able to treat ourselves like that. So in everything, we're talking about finance, but it's the same thing. You see how people, for some quick money, they'll approve certain drugs, they'll approve certain chemicals to be used on the population, knowing that the chemical is dangerous, but they want to get rich. So you have to be careful and protect yourself, because you have to understand that there's people out there that they say, when it says it's approved by this institution or that institution, all the time it's kickbacks. And that stuff should never be approved. And the next year, it kill all the people, and they have to pull it from the market. And they knew, because you look at the way it was approved and you realize it was pushed through by certain people, and you might not be able to trace the money, because the money probably got to them in a manila envelope. But you know what happened. And this is the life we live. So the Bible points us down that road and say, you got to be careful, watch these things, because they are trying to destroy you to make money or to get power. In Hebrews chapter 12, verse 1 through 4, notice it says here, wherefore seeing we also are compassed about with so great a cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight and the sin which doth so easily beset us, and let us run with patience the race that is set before us. So as my topic is that you have to know the race. This is the race that we're in. And the race is for life. That's the basic race, so to speak. And the higher level race, the master race, is a race for your own salvation. And you have to run both race. You're forced to run race. As I said, when we're birthed, yesterday I was covering, we're birthed into a race. And we don't choose the race. The race choose that. That's what we're birthed into. We have no choice. And even as people say, I don't deal in that type of thinking. Those are foolish people. The fact of the matter is that we have no choice over this. People force it upon us and say, well, we have to be in a race. So, okay. So then the Bible comes now and say, I'm going to educate you as to what that race is, and then the larger race. So you can be a winner and not a loser. You don't want to lose. And somebody said, well, our life is not forever, and, one day we're going to die, and we're all going to die. Sure, but don't speed your death and your suffering and your misery, and don't be a loser in this life, because probably if you're a loser in this life, you'll probably lose out on eternity. We're trying to be overcomers. That's what we're called to be. So notice he says here that the sin that so easily beset us, one of the sins that can beset us, and I've noticed the Bible very emphasized this sin is the sin of being a stupid person or being a foolish person. The Bible talks a lot about the fool. And the only person that is more condemned in the Bible than a fool is a person that is very prideful. The fool has more hope, the Bible says, than a prideful person, because a prideful person is ultimately a fool, because a prideful person will never take advice and never listen, because they know it all, and they're full of themselves, and they're arrogant. And so when a person is arrogant, they can't be taught. So they're worse than a fool. So notice here. So there's sins that beset us, that mess us up. As I say, a lot of people, oh, I don't judge. I don't. It's a foolish person. I don't get beaten. Notice here, looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and is set down at the right hand of the throne of God. For consider him that endure such contradiction of sinners against himself, lest you be wearied and faint in your mind. So when we think about Jesus Christ, what we're thinking about is sinners that are contradicting themselves. They're doing something that is against their best interest. They're causing themselves losses, financial losses, because we're in finance, but yet they're running out of money. They're going to end up losing power and fame, but yeah, that's what they're running down, and they're willing to sell themselves. And when they sell themselves for the money, power, fame, and then they lose the money, power, and fame, then what was it for? Sinners do things against themselves. That's what we do. That's what sin is. Sin is against our best interest. But oftentimes when we're doing sinful things, we think that it's for our best interest, but it's not. So here it says in verse 3 again, for consider him, which is Jesus, that endure such contradiction of sinners, because you're trying to bless people and they're working against you. I look back with often sad feelings of how many times, I'm there talking about natural health to people, and they get very aggressive and they start attacking, start accusing of being fanatical. You're being fanatical, or it's too extreme. And then shortly thereafter, they drop dead of some disease that could have been easily treated with natural. Because in their mind, they don't understand that their inner environment, which is extreme, their environment is extreme. The society that we live in is very extreme when it comes on to the use of drugs only. But because they're being deceived, because the whole system was paid and bought by multi-millionaires and billionaires, and that they're in a zone that in their mind, they're thinking you're the deceived one. And they don't know the history of how the drug system came about, that they are in a deception. And so that's what deception is. And that's, to me, one of the biggest things that you learn from the Bible, to teach you the methods. That you could be dealing with a person and they're very either adamant or arrogant, and they themselves don't know that they're the duped one. Because that's, to me, what the Bible teaches, that there's somebody, you see, that I'm duped or they're duped. And so you're looking at a person, you deal with a person, you're saying, wait a minute. So they really believe that the solution for every problem that the body faces is just drugs. And then they're in a society where there are people on the street, doing dumpster diving. And they don't realize that. So the problem is that they think their mindset is the problem, because they think the solution for everything is drugs. And where did this come from? When you start doing the research, it is amazing how the society is bought or sold. But the society that is bought or sold is a society thinking they're the one that got it figured out, and you're backwards and uncivilized. So you have to think like that. You have to look at yourself and say, okay, in the last 50 years, what country has been almost in perpetual wars? But you go to the citizens, they'll tell you, oh, we're the one that is trying to help everybody. And you say, how are you trying to help everybody? Oh, we're just war, famine, pestilence everywhere. But it's to help them. You see, people can be in a zone where you become deceived. And what I've learned from being young is that you could think a certain way, and your culture could give it to you a certain way, and you could think it's normal. When I grew up in an environment where sound pollution, that's what I call it, sound pollution is normal. People don't keep their music and entertainment within the confines of their house. They bleed it out to the society, and they all day, all night. And so you grew up in that environment. I got used, it's just normal. That's what you do. That's what people do. They share their music with you. no matter how great music was or how vulgar the music was, they share it. So you become normal. Then you go to I moved and I lived in another society, and there was no sound pollution. And I was like, oh wow, there's no sound pollution. But in my mind, sound pollution was normal. It was just that's how people live. You just the cars, the from the yards, the house, everywhere, sound pollution. And you get comfortable with that. You just think you're not even comfortable because you don't know no that better. So what I realize is no matter what society I live in, there's things that might be somebody would be adamant and that said this is absolutely the way it has to be. And then now I learned, oh, it is the zone that you're in, and you might think and you will defend to the death that yeah, we have it right. Because you know no different. But what I learned real quickly is that the culture can make you be comfortable and contradict yourself. So if I need to go to work and it's 10 o'clock at night and I need to go to bed, I need quiet. But if I'm in an environment where sound pollution, just in case you're getting that wrong, sound pollution, music being blaring loud for the whole community to hear, that's normal. So then people can't sleep at night and they have to go up and go to work the next morning. But that's normal. And that's wrong because that is not freedom. That is taking away some of the freedom. Your freedom become my abuse, so to speak. You're abusing me. But that could be normal. And so then now I'm in a different culture and I realize, oh, what they think is normal, and they would attack somebody for thinking any wise way. And they think this is progress and this is civilized. And then you start realizing, oh, so we all have uncivilized behavior. Everybody have uncivilized behavior, but the one with might think that their behavior is advanced because you all need to enjoy what I'm enjoying, and what if I don't enjoy that? So this is kind of how I do it. So when I look at now this concept here of consider him that endures such contradiction of sinners, Christ in the world, he's ministering, and what he's doing the right way. But the people think that that's normal. This is normal. This is the way it's supposed to do. And you realize, oh, they're all in that mindset and they see this is how you go at life. So he comes now and starts saying, no, that's not how you go at life. And they start to want to kill him until they end up killing him. Every time he preached, they wanted to kill him because for them, they're like, no, you can't do life like this. As a matter of fact, as an example, before I go to probably the main text I came for, is I remember when I first read sometime a few months ago that the policy of Israel, the current president, was to not only oppress and constantly take in land for the Palestinians, but every now and then when the Palestinians get a little bit too rambunctious and they want to fight to free themselves, he say he will go over to their area and start mowing the grass. And what he meant by that is he just start killing a bunch of them and quiet them down so they understand, stay in line. Just stay there until we keep taking away land from you. But to Westerners, that is normal. I never heard it until a few months ago. Never heard the concept that this was his policy. And then the people that live in the country, the Jews, they think it's normal. So then I started saying, oh, it doesn't matter what country you go. There's something within the zone that is like abhorrent, is as an abomination. But they think it's normal. And in their mind, you can't tell them nothing because they're normal. And I'm thinking, oh, so it's the same. Everybody's afflicted by the same madness. It's like what I grew up with and I thought was normal. Somebody's grew up with something else and they think it's normal. Then somebody's grew up in another thing over here and they think it's normal. But we all are messed up. It's like we have somebody put a screw in our head and we're screwed up. But you come now to the Bible and you start seeing that, oh, that's what Christ was dealing with. He was dealing with issues that were part of the culture and that was normalized, and they seem as crazy. And they're saying that the only thing we can do with him is just kill him because he keep telling us that we're not doing it right. And yet you go to the Bible and the Bible say, no, Christ actually had it right. We're supposed to look out for the stranger and the fatherless and the widow. But if you go and say this right now to probably 50% of the electorate in our country, they'll say, oh, no, you're wrong. We need to not only stop the strangers, but go to their country, destroy their government. And then if they come here, we need to stop them at the border. But we don't want them to survive. Why? You say, why are you doing this? Oh, because that's what we do. So it's normal in the culture. So what can be normal in my culture, your culture, this culture, that culture, can be a sick concept. But the people think, oh no, you just go over there and steal their land. And we just keep them in a cage and open air prison. And that's normal. And then Western Europe say, oh yeah, we back that. I think that's normal because it's the mindset. But it doesn't mean that it's a right mindset. It means that says we just can't be that corrupt and that foolish in our mindset that we can think something is normal and it's absolutely a mess, absolutely terrible. So when you look at that, you can see how that happens. So again, notice here in verse 4, it says, ye have not yet resisted unto bloodshed, the striving against sin. So when you start striving against sin, what is sinful and terrible in a society? It could cause you death, because what it is that people start getting mad and sad because how dare you challenge something that is normal and that is destructive in their society, but it's normal to them. And it's causing them pain, but they don't see it. So, as I say, you could believe in a society that the concept that says everything you should eat, it should be zapped and killed and radiated and burnt and fried and cooked and steamed. And they just think that's normal. And anything raw, that we don't eat that make our stomach upset. 2 Peter chapter 2, verse 1 states another principle. As I say, the Bible points us to this concept that a person will sell himself out, and that's part of the game. And you have to be careful when people sell themselves out or be sold out, and they don't even know it, that they've been merchandised. So again, I'm going to read a word here in a few minutes or a few seconds here called merchandise. Merchandise is this concept here. I don't think it's in this verse. Hopefully it's not it's probably in the next. That what it is that there's people who will sell you out for nothing. And they'll treat you as if you're like a commodity or goods or a product in a store. And you have to be aware of that, because God says it'll make you more precious than gold. And you have to be aware that that's part of the game. So in 2 Peter chapter 2, verse 1, it says here, but there were false prophets also among the people, even as there shall be false teachers among you, who privily shall bring in damnable heresies, even denying the Lord that bought them, and bring themselves swift destruction. So are you aware of this? This is part of the game that we play, that there's people, both in the secular realm and in the Christian or spiritual realm, that are false teachers, that will privately bring damnable heresies. They'll teach falsehood. One of the falsehood we're dealing with now that most people think is normal is new theology, which is basically once saved, always saved, and grace, or they call it grace orientated. There's various different names for it. And this is, I don't know if I've ever rarely meet a pastor that comes from the system that don't believe this. They believe in grace orientated message and it's all about grace. It's a damnable heresy. It's emptied out churches and destroying the society. But he says there was false prophet in the past. There's false prophet at the time he's writing this. And we will take this as saying there will be false prophets in our time. So this is part of the game you have to play, that people will literally lie to you and make up stuff and destroy you for their own gain. So this is part of the game. Yeah, this is to me why we're in a game, we're entered into a race, but you have to come to that realization when you enter into the gospel race, that there's things going on that it might seem like this, but there's people selling people out for money and for power. And that's part of the race. And unless you get that in your mind, you're going to go through life, you're going to take beatings, and you're going to always be falling for scams, financial scams. Like how many times you get texts on your phone, you get emails, you get calls, and there's just some, I don't know, there's no ends of people out there trying to scam you out of your money. Then in the political realm, people try to scam you because there's false prophets there. In the religious realm, people try to scam you. And if you go through life and you're just one of these gullible people that you eat everything people tell you, you will just be forever scammed and hoodwinked and bamboozled. Notice here, and many shall follow their pernicious ways, by reason of whom the way of truth shall be evil spoken of. So notice it's easier to find big following for people who are con men. Con man is a confidence man. They sound very confident and they sound like, you follow my process and you follow my principle, you listen to my teaching, and you're going to make money until you don't even know what to do. Or you're going to win so much that you're going to get tired of winning. All these hits that they do. And basically it's just a con man, city slicker. And they just con people and scam people. But you know what happened is, notice there are many. It's, the Broadway has more people than the narrow way. It's harder to preach morality and justice. There's oftentimes I realize when people listen to me, they think I'm talking about politics, like who to vote for. And they don't realize I'm not into that. I don't even watch that stuff. I don't care. But people get confused because I'm talking about morality. And since a lot of time these decisions are made by politicians, they're assuming that for one politician or against. And sometimes from one presentation to the other, I could get confused of being for this one or for that one. But most people don't understand the concept of morality, because in the church, the preachers almost never preach about morality and justice. All they preach about is probably some doctrines and something to do with prophecy. But yet the Bible is about morality and about justice. Anyhow, so notice here, and many shall follow their pernicious ways. And verse 3 says, and through covetousness shall they with vain words make merchandise of you. So through covetousness shall they with vain words. So they'll say words that it sounds great or not, but really what it is, they're using you. And they go abuse you, and they make it merchandise. So what is merchandise again? Merchandise is a product. You go into the store and there's a pot, or there's a basket, or there's a product. It's just a merchandise. It's a product. They make it merchandise of you. A merchant sell merchandise. Whatever merchants is selling. But they'll use words and take you and use you like you're nothing. You have no value. But notice they're true vain word, because they're covetous. They're looking for money. They're looking for power. And they'll say whatever they can to you to make you believe, so that it can make merchandise of you. So when we're in this world, that's the game we're entered into. We didn't enter ourselves into it. We're not trying to be made merchandise of, so to speak. Say we have some morality. It's not our intention. But somebody will say certain words because they want to make merchandise of you. So you're like, can be bought or sold. You can be sold to the highest bidder and stuff like that to make them money. So when you're going through that, if you're not aware of this concept, you will be bought and sold. You will not buy and sell yourself. You'll be bought and sold. They'll buy and sell you. And so through covetousness, because they're covetous, they with vain word, whatever word they can say to you, as I say, they're confidence men, make merchandise of you, whose judgment now of a long time linger not, and their damnation slumber not. For if God spared not the angels that sinned, but cast them down to hell, and delivered them into chains of darkness, to be reserved unto judgment, what's going to happen to them? And I keep going. So here we find that this is part of the game that you must understand. I mean, you must understand it. I think it's important for me. These are important texts. These are important points that when you're in this world, as I say, you're birthed into a race. You don't choose a race, but you're birthed into a race. You're birthed in this concept that people are trying to survive, and they'll do anything to survive. Sell themselves, sell you, sell everything. And when you come to the Bible now, because of conversion, the Bible teaches you that this is part of what's going on. Just in case nobody ever tell you, the Bible teaches you, and then I'm here emphasizing these points, that people say whatever to make you feel good, to make you think that you're going to look good, so that they can rip you off and bamboozle you and get you money. And that's what it is. Some people are better at it than others. And the better they get at it, the richer they get. This is the world we live in. This is the society we live in, no matter where you live in this world. There's always people that will use fear We use pride. We use covetousness to catch you. Oh, you're gonna be rich. You're gonna have all the people gonna love you and blah blah blah. And then give me your money. And then they make merchandise of you. And then they will sell you to something for somebody else to make you merchandise because they say we have a dummy over here. And so you can't be a dummy in this life. And it doesn't matter if it's in business. This is especially I'm talking about business because they're making merchandise of you. But in church, you see the same thing. You've seen it in church. You have some con man saying they're preaching and they do an evangelistic meeting, and next thing you know, they have how many people got baptized. You don't care about those people. He's going to put in a resume that I baptized how many people. But you go to that church 6 months, a year later, how many of those people in the church? He already get his money, he get his bag, and he go to the next town, and he does the same thing. He's just making merchandise of people. But you see, people believe this is just in business, but it's business. It's just religious business. He don't care about your soul. He don't care about nothing. He just care about just getting them in the church, pack them in, do some quick baptism, and then he's out. He's out, gone to the next town to run his carpet bagging. And he's selling goods that there's no warranty on the goods. They have no value. Nobody care about those people. But that's making merchandise of people. And we see this all the time. You know, I remember one time there was a famous evangelist, and somebody that used to work with him say, I was there when in one city, he baptized about 400 and something people. Ain't nobody was in the church after that, but he was just dunking them under the water. But people need care, people need ministry, people need a blessing. But that was not the intention. The intention is that say he's gonna look good, he's gonna have fame, he's gonna get so paid, and he's off to the next city because what he's doing is not sustainable. It's not gonna work. And so now you see now people get in and they get baptized and they really believe. And then next you know, a little bit later, they're not in the church, their life is a mess, and the ministry that they needed, they can't. They didn't get it. So it is that fact of life that goes on. They'll make merchandise of you and they'll buy you and sell you. And so you have to be in this life and you have to say, there's a game. And I know there's a game, but I don't understand how the game is played. And when you learn the game and then you come to the Bible gives you a bigger picture of what the game is. And sure, that's it. Yeah, you need to overcome that game, but you have another game that you have to play, which is the game of life, the game of salvation. And you have to win both games. And you have to, but the Bible gives you an edge because if you understand what's going on, you have an edge of both games. You understand that they're making merchandise of you, but ultimately you have to not make yourself be a merchandise. And then you have to have salvation. And you can't go through life a dum-dum. So this is why you have to kind of learn. So I've been there. I remember when I was younger, you go to certain seminars and they, you buy their class. And the class costs this amount of money. You're going to learn and you're going to make this amount of money. And people just line up buying the class. And they all broke. I remember when I was younger, there would be, because they used to do mortgages, there used to be these things where, they give you a course and you can start buying property and renting property and blah, 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 blah. I know many people I've seen done that type of stuff and go broke. And I've seen people do it and do well for themselves. But then you start realizing there's more to life. But oftentimes what it is that there's people who probably never going to get a mortgage. They never can really do anything well for themselves, but they're there running on an opportunity that's going to be elusive and evasive. But yet they'll go down that road and then end up taking a beating. So we don't want to be like that. We want to be able to have some sense and not be a dum-dum in this life. Notice here in Revelation chapter 18, verse 11. Revelation 18, verse 11. Notice it says here, and the merchants, so these are the people who buy and sell people, the merchants of the earth shall weep and mourn over her, for no man buyeth their merchandise anymore. Notice now here, it's going to list in Revelation 18, the merchandise that no man buy anymore. Notice here the merchandise of gold and silver and precious stones, and of pearls and fine linen and purple and silk and scarlet and all fine wood and all manner of vessels of ivory and all manner of vessels of most precious wood and brass and iron and marble and cinnamon and odors and ointments and frankincense and wine and oil and fine flour and wheat and beast and sheep and horses and chariots. So I'll pause there. So everything that is listed there, I remember when I was younger, I would read Revelation 18 and I would wonder to myself, why does John take all this time to list all the merchandise that the merchantmen would sell? And when you think through this with me here, because I used to read this and be baffled. I couldn't understand. Why go through all this list? Okay. So, frankincense, iron. Okay, that's basically our commodities market. Pearl, all of that. But notice at the end now, the last part of verse 12, he says, of verse 13, he says, they list horses and chariots. You say, okay, those are commodities. You could sell them. They're merchandise. But notice he says, and slaves and souls of men. So a slave is somebody you could just go into a market and buy and say, oh, that slave look good. I'll buy it for whatever price you're selling me. I'll pay for it. But then you say, and souls of men. Can a soul of man be bought? Because remember, Peter says that they can make merchandise of you. And here the Bible is telling us that, yes, you can be made merchandise. It can be bought or sold. And as you see it happen in the church, it happened in the society. People are just bought or sold. I remember this was written over 2,000 years ago. And up until 200 years ago, slavery was something that was normal. It's something that happened. And as we know, the most brutal form of slavery happened in the United States. So slavery was something that was there. They would buy men and they bought the soul and body of men. And it's the same thing I believe in the church, as I just illustrate to you, that souls of men can be bought for cheap and sell them to hell. Christ accused the Pharisees and Sadducees and say, this is what they do. They go sea and land to win one proselyte. And then when there is one, he making them twice. How much time more the sons of Satan or hell as themselves. So you can either bring someone into church and make them even worse, buying souls and body of men. And G.Y. says that the Protestants, I think is the word she used, or the Christians would go to a foreign land to make Christians of people, then introduce them to vices and make them even worse. And you could say, Lord, what are you talking about? Look at the native Indians in America. Look at them now. They have been introduced to this lifestyle that is an alcoholic lifestyle. It's a fast food lifestyle. This is their lifestyle. And now they've made them fulfill what she said, that you could go to the pagan and make the pagans worse. Now, how can a Christian make the pagans worse? Well, Christ said that if the Pharisees will go sea and land, this is normal in the culture, and they'll make the pagans worse. They make them twice a child of Satan or hell than themselves. So they're going to hell and they're going to make the person even worse. So can a person make somebody worse? Yeah, make merchandise of them. So they accept the Lord, they become Christianized, but now they introduce them to alcohol or to drugs. And now the society now normal. So if you go to the Indians now, imagine native Indians, and you say, man, y'all need to get off that alcohol. Oh, that's the other thing too. They give them fast food and then food deserts, so they don't eat natural food like they used to before the Christians came. So if we show that, it's to even already you can see a demonstration of that very clearly. You saw that even the 80s up to the 80s, it was purported that Reagan was flooding the black community with drugs so he can get money to pay for the wars that he was fighting abroad. And so you're making merchandise of the people. They're for cheap. I imagine the person on drugs all strung out, they don't understand the government is there to destroy you. So this is the game that we're in. But if you don't understand the game, you don't understand, they'll make merchandise of you. So right now, imagine if you go to the native Indians, they don't know no other culture than the culture that's been given to them. And they might think it's normal to be obese, to be drunk, because that's their culture. And you'll be like, that's not your culture. That's what somebody gave you a culture. If you remember back in the 1800s, I think it was 1900s, because there was a trade deficit with China. England flooded China with opium and made the people on drugs so they could extract money. I remember I was told the same thing happened to Jamaica because they were trying to extract money. So they start flooding the island with all kind of, chemical drugs, not the natural drugs. And what happened? So sucking China, whatever, dry. So you can see people can make merchandise. So you're thinking, oh, I'm hooked on a drug. You're not hooked on a drug. Somebody planned it. So when you go to the Bible says it's wickedness in high places. And this is what you're seeing in demonstration. So you might thinking, oh no, they remember they're twice the son, they're the son of hell. And you think they're not going to do it the same thing. So then you start going to places like West Virginia, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, and places like that. You find that they have some of the biggest penetration of opiates. Well, who makes the opiates? Who's doing all these drugs? Well, is probably, I would say, it's in New Jersey, since it's the pharmaceutical capital of the world. And yet you find the citizens are being hooked on drugs by its own. So they'll make merchandise of you. As I say, show me a video of what's going on in the society around us, and show me a place that I've been to, North Philly, those different places I've been to, and you see all these people string out on drugs. Most of them came through the drugs via the doctor writing a prescription. The doctors made them merchandise of them so they could make phenomenal money, excellent money. So for money and power, people will sell their soul. What about you? They'll sell you for less. And you see this, that's when the Bible says, if you don't understand this game and understand what they're doing, they'll make merchandise of you. And you're thinking, oh, your doctor is so nice, he's just there to whatever. You have to prove himself to me, because the aim is to get you drugged up. I saw a video recently, it was on, I think, Nightline or something, where this 19-year-old body slammed a doctor on the floor, the concrete floor. And why? Because he had prescribed opiate to his mom. And so he took matters into his own hand. And you say, what's such an extreme result? But look at the extreme case, My probably soon is and his mother, in the court, his mother defended him. But soon you see her on the side of the street and probably eating out of the garbage bin and being a crack or a opiate selling herself for drugs. And is not probably should be a death penalty for somebody to do that to somebody. But people will sell you out. So if you're in this life and you're there, oh no, they're not going to sell me out. Are you crazy? You believe that people in the leadership of any country will not sell you out for some money and some kickback and some money under the table? But there's people I've dealt with in the past that, and some of them now are dead because they're foolish, believe that this is not so. And I'm like, you're nuts. I don't care where you live in this planet. People sell you out for money and power. So notice it says slaves and soul of men. What was slavery about? It's about money. Notice here, and the fruits that thy soul lusted it after are depart from thee, and all things which are dainty and goodly is departed from thee, and thou shalt find them no more at all. So the merchants lose it. So for covetousness, people will sell you out. In Isaiah chapter 3, verse 8, Isaiah 3, verse 8. Notice it says here in Isaiah 3, verse 8, for Jerusalem is ruined and Judah is fallen. Now, it's important to pause there because remember right now, Jerusalem is built. It was built once, built twice, and they said 3 times is a charm or something like that. So they should be careful because remember, Jerusalem has been brought to ruin before. So anyhow, so Jerusalem is ruined. This is after the destruction of Jerusalem, and Isaiah was prophesying. Jerusalem is ruined and Judah is fallen because their tongue and their doings are against the Lord to provoke the eyes of his glory. The show of their countenance that witness against them, and they declare their sin as Sodom. And you've seen this today where people look like they're Sodomites. You don't even have to hear them talk. And the moment they talk, you'll be like, oh dear. And their sins as Sodom, and they hide it not. Woe unto their soul, for they have rewarded evil unto themselves. So very important and key point here, that no matter what society you live in, people will contradict themselves and reward themselves evil. So you have to protect yourself. You have to look in this life and say, wait a minute, if they're going to do this to themselves, what would they do to me? Which is my topic. If a person would sell himself out for nothing, for power and for money, what would they do for me? They'll do it for me for less. All right. And so notice here, their countenance does show and they reward themselves evil. All right. You look at it, is the source of the opiate epidemic, the society beating itself. As you see, you go to West Virginia and Tennessee and those places, and all the people stuck on drugs. Who did it to them? Who? As an owl. Who did it to them? Notice here, say ye to the righteous that it shall be well with him. This is what we would want to come in, because we're in a different game. You see, they're in a game, they're in a race, but they don't understand the race is being played against them. They're failing because Satan is against everybody, including me and them. But, that's how it is. But they don't realize they're in a race. But we realize because of salvation, that, this is what's going on. Satan is going to take out everybody. But some people believe, as long as I'm over this side, I'm good. No. That's a deception. Say ye to the righteous that it shall be well with him, for they shall eat the fruit of their doings. Because remember, the regular people, they're receiving the fruit of their doings. They're rendering evil to themselves, but they don't see it. As I said to you, when they flood one community with drugs, they should have said, no. You can't do that, because if you do that, what happened if it happened to our group? Now their community is flooded with drugs and there's no solution for it, because they're rendering evil to themselves. So this is what we have to be very careful of. Yeah. Who blew up? So notice here, say ye to the righteous that it shall be well with him, for they shall eat the fruit of their doings. Woe unto the wicked, it shall be ill with him, for ye shall reward. I look over here. For the reward of his hand shall be given him. So whatever man sow, that shall he also reap. The question that you have to ask yourself, a lot of the reaping that you see going on in society, did they do it to themselves? Because they're going to tell you it's this person or that person or that person. Okay, sure. But do you have any hand in what you're reaping? Because here the Bible tells us that you sow and you reap. But people are saying, no, it's this thing is causing me to reap and that thing is causing me to reap. Ain't nobody causing you to reap. No, you're doing it to yourself. So woe unto the wicked, it shall be well with him, for the reward of his hand shall be given him. As for my people, children are their oppressors. Unbelievable. Some of them, they're changing, they're transitioning, morphing. There's metamorphosis going on. They're like caterpillars. Children are their oppressors, and women rule over them. My people, they which lead thee cause thee to err, and destroy the ways of thy paths. So notice it's saying here that my people, so Israel was being destroyed from its leaders. So when you see destruction happening to a group of people, it's easy to say it is this person or that person is causing it. But what has to get in the mind is, as first you look at the head, whoever leading, but the society is not taught that. They're taught to look at the tail. In other words, the least amongst us. And this is part of the trick that the Bible teaches you and give you a master plan in your mind, or master concepts. So you start to say, wait a minute, so where am I supposed to look? You always start with leadership. If you see the people destroyed, you say, who are the top in the society? See all these people on drugs, you say, is it the drug dealer, the local drug dealers, the gangs from Mexico and the gangs from, El Salvador and the gangs from whatever country you want to blame? Or do you look and say, wait a minute, but did they start with the gangs on the street, or they start with the doctor? You see, I just give you a key there, because most people are real. You know what it is? You read things in the Bible, you say, okay, that's logical. And then you listen to people in the society and you say, I guess it's not that logical. For them, they're on a deception. So they don't know who's destroying their lives. They think it is this person over here, because they don't understand there's a race, but the race is not what they think it is. The race is to kill them. And our race is, we enter into a race to survive. We're trying to stay alive. But most people don't get this. And they think that says the person to be blamed is the person at the lower rungs of society. While the Bible teaches us, no. You always start with the head, who is in charge, because that's what somebody's in charge for. So notice here, Your leaders are destroying you. So that's what the Bible in Ephesians now, where we started, says is the political, not political, but is wickedness in high places, because it could be a monarchical system. And that's where struggle is. But if you're not in that struggle, you're not in the game. You don't understand the struggle. You're thinking, oh no, it's my neighbor. My neighbor is not my problem. Unless my neighbor is a high official. It's those in charge. And their laws. Let me keep going. So the Lord started up to plea and said to judge the people. The Lord will enter into judgment with the ancient of his people. Notice the old men. Notice it was old men that killed Christ. It was old men that killed Martin Luther. Most of the time, it's always these old men that are sending young men to go fight their stupid wars. It's always these old guys. You look who are the worst people in our society, and you find it's the old people who are destroying the young people's life. But normally they told you, oh no, the real trouble in our society is these people who are weak and have no power. They're the one that's destroying your people. And that's because they are masters of scamming people. Notice here, the Lord sent them plea and sent them to judge the people. The Lord will enter into judgment with the ancients of his people and the princes thereof, the leadership. For ye have eaten up the vineyard and spoiled the poor in your houses. So imagine the swamp monsters are telling you and I that the people who are stealing from you are the poor people who are suffering from their policies. And people eat it up. So God has to punish the people, but God will punish. And see, my process here is I've been trying to look to understand how God punish the ancients and the princes. And he does. Because God no joke. Notice here, what mean ye that ye beat my people to pieces and grind the face of the poor, saith the Lord of hosts. Let's think about it. You can live in any modern industrial country, and they're sending rocket to space, and there's people living on the side of the street, and it don't even affect them. They don't even care. They're doing all kind of craziness with the money, war and pestilence on every human being on the planet, and there's people eating out a garbage bin. They don't care. They're just grinding down the poor. But the same person that's eating out a garbage bin will attack me and say I took something from them. And I'm like, I'm struggling too. I'm trying to make it in this life. What are you talking about? So the Bible gives you a master way of looking at life and seeing life for what it is, how Satan works his business, so you can try to overcome these wicked people. And also trying to fend off people who are trying to blame you for their suffering while they don't see who's really making them suffer. Unbelievable. Isaiah chapter 10 verse 1. Isaiah 10 verse 1 says, woe unto them that decree unrighteous decrees. So that would be our laws and our statutes. And that right grievousness which they have prescribed. So literally, whatever they prescribe, it could be a doctor on a script, it could be a lawyer in the Congress, the Senate, in the Parliament, depending on what country you live. What it is, they prescribe these evil laws. And now it's there, but you think the law is just there for whatever it is, because they're covetous and they go rob you and they're trying to keep down poor people. But you're like, oh, it's a law of the land. I used to hear people say, oh, we have to live by the law. I'm like, yeah, if it's a just law, but that's a corrupt, evil law that's written by corrupt and covetous people. Because that's what the Bible teaches. And when you see it in society, you say, oh, the Bible gives you some insight into what the Satan is doing with the leaders of the country. Notice here, why do they write this prescription about opiates and stuff like that, as an example? It says here, to turn aside the needy from judgment. Who? You mean, if I go and I look at almost all the laws written this year, for the Congress, who they writing it for? Because Congress make law. Who they writing it for? Who paid them to write those laws? But the same people write those laws say, oh no, the poor people, they're the enemy of society. Notice here, to turn aside the needy from his judgment, to take away the right from the poor of my people. So when somebody, they're in the right, they'll take away the poor. You can go into so many communities right now, and you can build on 5 acres, you can't get a house. But they say there's shortages of houses, and the people that's causing housing problem is the immigrants that really build the houses. Because who they have, I remember recently I was in Florida, and I went to an area and there's a massive construction and the amount of Hispanics there. Now, probably all of them are legal because I didn't go ask them if they're legal or illegal. But I have a hunch. What did you? But they'll build a house and then they'll tell them, get out of my country. You're the problem. And you'll be like, what? Is this real? This is like we in Bible times. So they write the laws, and you're thinking, oh, we have to save the planet. We have to save the turtles and the butterflies. And I'm like, yeah, I love butterflies and turtles. I love fishes and stuff too. I like to look at them, not eat them. But you said to yourself, okay, so what are these laws? Oh, these laws are to take the right of the needy to live on the land. Why one person should be able to have land and not another person? Where does that rule come from? Why shouldn't I be able to live? Oh, no, because there's rules here. And you say, what is the rule? 5 acres. And you'll be like, who can afford that? If rich people can, people at the middle class can't even afford. People paying $700,000, $500,000, $1 million for a house. How can it be a starter house for a new family? But you can't talk to them because they'll say, oh no, you liberal or you woke? I'm like, I'm just. I'm not wicked. So notice here, turn aside the needy from the judgment and take away the right of the poor of my people. They have rights too. A multi-billionaire don't have more rights than you and I. But they'll tell me, oh no, they do. Why? That the widow may be a prey, may be their prey. Who they preying on? Just like the Pharisees. You look at the religious leader in our church, the wicked. Who they prey on? I want to avoid those things. But who they prey on? They prey on the widow. And that they may rob the fatherless. Who? The fatherless. What was the church that was raping all these fatherless kids? You see? Nothing changed. People say, oh, things change. Nothing changed. Oh, you can have a rule that 10 acres. Who can afford that? Who can afford that? Right? And even if I can afford that, I need to be able to see that that's not right. You can't do that with poor people. But they do it. And then people say, oh, no, the poor people is the problem. Why? It's the princes are the problem. The leaders, you see, but the Bible open your eye to what's going on so you're not deceived by Satan and his secret society people who go into these town boards and write these demonic laws because them and Satan is working together. Notice in Matthew 26, verse 14 through 16, it says, then one of the 12 called Judas, spelled J-U-D, not J-E-W-A-S or D-A-S, says Judas Iscariot went unto the chief priests. So what did Judas do? He went unto the chief priests and said unto them, what will ye give me? And I will deliver him unto you. And they covenanted because they're wicked. Notice it's the leaders. Somebody said, but didn't Judas? He was younger and he was, there's always people who sell you out. With the leaders of the country, the leaders of the church. This is what we're up against. Notice here, they covenant with him for 30 pieces of silver. What did they do? They covenant with Judas for 30 pieces of silver, these corrupt leaders. And from that time, he sought opportunity to betray him. So he was making merchandise. He said, I'll sell out my Lord for 30 pieces of silver. It's so shameful. Not even 30 pieces of gold, 30 pieces of silver. That was what Christ was worth to him. And the Pharisees would gladly pay it because they're just corrupt. And that's what it is. That's the society you live in. People see these multi-billionaires and they think, a few years ago, there was this protest where people were protesting the 1%ers. And they start buying up media and start pushing heavy, the 1%ers, to stop the protests. Because I think the people were getting aware that who is there that making merchandise of them? Who is there that is the Judases that is selling them out? And then all of a sudden it quiet down and everybody went back to their holes and to their suffering. And then the things get better. Was there a new deal? The Judases say in our society that they go whatever. So when you read the Bible tells you people will sell you out for nothing. And they'll figure out a way to control major media, to tell major media, shut them up, don't make them talk like that. They should know that they hunt to Satan's plan to use us to destroy the society. A society with the richest people in the world and people living on these tents and there's shortages of homes and you have to get like 5 acres to buy a house and all these crazy things in some of these townships. But they say, oh no, we're trying to keep it, we're trying to save nature, while bombs dropping everywhere, destroying nature. You see, there are people like fools. In 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 8, it says, for the love of money is the root of all evil. Verse 10, which some coveted after, and they have erred from the faith and pierced themselves through with many sorrows. So you see people running out money, the rich running out money. They don't start pegging out and killing themselves and dropping dead of cancers and stuff like that. Because what happened? There's more to life. We are called to be charitable people. We are called to love the poor, love the fatherless, love the stranger. But they can't render this because their aim is to destroy the stranger, the fatherless, and rob the widow. We don't follow them. We follow Jesus. There's more I could say, but I realize my time is far spent. So we will pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, I thank you for your word. And this day I pray, the Lord, you may bless us and guide us as we walk humbly before thee. And may we truly love our neighbor as ourselves. This is my prayer in Jesus' name. Amen. Well, thanks to be with me here on Revive Reform Radio. Looking forward to talking to you again live tomorrow when we should talk about natural health. Until then, I pray that you may continue to walk with King Jesus.